Story 1. The Whispering Woods. In the heart of a small, forgotten town nestled deep within the forest, there lay a secret that whispered through the trees. Legend spoke of the Whispering Woods, a place where the trees seemed to speak to those who dared to venture too close. Some said it was cursed, haunted by the spirits of those who had disappeared within its dark embrace. Others dismissed it as mere superstition, the ramblings of frightened minds. But one thing was certain: the woods held secrets, and those who entered often never returned. It started with whispers, soft and barely audible, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. Lily Jenkins, a curious soul with a penchant for adventure, had always been drawn to the mysterious allure of the Whispering Woods. Despite the warnings of the townsfolk, she couldn't resist the pull of the unknown. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the leaves painted the forest floor in hues of gold and crimson, Lily set out on her journey. Armed with nothing but her camera and a sense of determination, she ventured deeper into the woods than anyone had dared to go before. The trees seemed to lean in closer, their branches intertwining overhead to form a canopy that blocked out the sunlight. Shadows danced along the forest floor, and the whispers grew louder, as if beckoning her further into their dark embrace. Lost in the thrill of discovery, Lily hardly noticed the passage of time. The woods seemed to shift and change around her, the once familiar path now twisted and distorted. Panic began to gnaw at the edges of her mind as she realized she was hopelessly lost. The whispers grew into murmurs, words forming in the ancient language of the woods. They spoke of forgotten secrets and hidden dangers, of souls trapped between the world of the living and the dead. Lily's heart pounded in her chest as she stumbled through the underbrush, desperate to find her way back to safety. But the woods seemed to have other plans. It started with whispers, soft and barely audible, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. Lily Jenkins, a curious soul with a penchant for adventure, had always been drawn to the mysterious allure of the Whispering Woods. Despite the warnings of the townsfolk, she couldn't resist the pull of the unknown. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the leaves painted the forest floor in hues of gold and crimson, Lily set out on her journey. Armed with nothing but her camera and a sense of determination, she ventured deeper into the woods than anyone had dared to go before. The trees seemed to lean in closer, their branches intertwining overhead to form a canopy that blocked out the sunlight. Shadows danced along the forest floor, and the whispers grew louder, as if beckoning her further into their dark embrace. Lost in the thrill of discovery, Lily hardly noticed the passage of time. The woods seemed to shift and change around her, the once familiar path now twisted and distorted. Panic began to gnaw at the edges of her mind as she realized she was hopelessly lost. The whispers grew into murmurs, words forming in the ancient language of the woods. They spoke of forgotten secrets and hidden dangers, of souls trapped between the world of the living and the dead. Lily's heart pounded in her chest as she stumbled through the underbrush, desperate to find her way back to safety. But the woods seemed to have other plans. It started with whispers, soft and barely audible, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. Lily Jenkins, a curious soul with a penchant for adventure, had always been drawn to the mysterious allure of the Whispering Woods. Despite the warnings of the townsfolk, she couldn't resist the pull of the unknown. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the leaves painted the forest floor in hues of gold and crimson, Lily set out on her journey. Armed with nothing but her camera and a sense of determination, she ventured deeper into the woods than anyone had dared to go before. The trees seemed to lean in closer, their branches intertwining overhead to form a canopy that blocked out the sunlight. Shadows danced along the forest floor, and the whispers grew louder, as if beckoning her further into their dark embrace. Lost in the thrill of discovery, Lily hardly noticed the passage of time. The woods seemed to shift and change around her, the once familiar path now twisted and distorted. Panic began to gnaw at the edges of her mind as she realized she was hopelessly lost. The whispers grew into murmurs, words forming in the ancient language of the woods. They spoke of forgotten secrets and hidden dangers, of souls trapped between the world of the living and the dead. Lily's heart pounded in her chest as she stumbled through the underbrush, desperate to find her way back to safety. But the woods seemed to have other plans. As they stumbled blindly through the woods, Jack could feel the oppressive weight of the forest bearing down on him. It seemed to resist their every move, as if determined to keep them trapped within its grasp. But Jack refused to give up. With a burst of desperate strength, he pulled Lily along, their breath coming in ragged gasps. The whispers seemed to mock them, their voices echoing with cruel laughter as they raced through the darkness. Finally, just as Jack thought they could go no further, they stumbled into a clearing. Moonlight filtered through the trees, casting an ethereal glow over the scene before them. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient tree, its branches twisted and gnarled with age. A sense of dread washed over Jack as he realized what they had stumbled upon, the heart of the Whispering Woods. But there was no time to hesitate. With a final burst of adrenaline-fueled determination, Jack pulled Lily toward the tree. He could feel its malevolent presence pressing down on him, a dark force that seemed to feed on their fear. Ignoring the whispers that echoed in his mind, Jack reached out and pressed his hand against the rough bark of the tree. It was cold to the touch, sending a shiver of dread down his spine. But then something miraculous happened. Light erupted from the tree, bathing the clearing in a brilliant glow. The whispers fell silent, their malevolent presence banished by the pure light that filled the air. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. Jack and Lily stood in the clearing, panting for breath as they gazed up at the tree in wonder. The darkness that had haunted the whispering woods seemed to have lifted, leaving only the gentle rustling of leaves in its wake. In the days that followed, Jack and Lily emerged from the whispering woods, their bodies weary but their spirits renewed. The town welcomed them back with open arms, their joy tinged with relief at their safe return. But the whispering woods had left its mark on them. Lily, once full of curiosity and adventure, now carried a haunted look in her eyes. She spoke little of her time in the woods, her memories clouded by the darkness that had consumed her. As for Jack, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered in the back of his mind. The whispers still haunted his dreams, their voices echoing in the depths of his subconscious. But despite it all, they were alive. And that perhaps was the greatest miracle of all. The whispering woods remained a place of mystery and danger, its secrets hidden within the twisted branches of its ancient trees. But for Jack and Lily, it would always hold a special place in their hearts. A reminder of the darkness they had faced and the light that had guided them home. And so, the legend of the Whispering Woods lived on, whispered among the townsfolk as a cautionary tale of the dangers that lurked within its shadowed depths. But for Jack and Lily, it was more than just a tale. It was a nightmare they would never forget. As the last words of the tale fade into the silence of the night, a chill settles over the room. The storyteller looks around at the wide-eyed faces of their audience, a knowing glint in their eye. For in that moment they all know, the Whispering Woods is real, and it waits for its next victim. Story 2, Echoes of the Forgotten. The town of Ravenswood was known for its quaint charm and the eerie tales whispered among its cobblestone streets. Nestled between mist-shrouded hills and ancient forests, it seemed to hold secrets in every shadow. On a chilly October evening, the townsfolk gathered at the Black Crow, a cozy pub that served as the beating heart of Ravenswood. Among them was Sarah, a young woman with an insatiable curiosity and a fascination with the macabre. As the fire crackled merrily in the hearth, Sarah listened intently to the tales of disappearances that had haunted Ravenswood for generations. The old-timer spoke of the Vanishing, a mysterious occurrence where individuals would simply vanish without a trace, leaving behind only whispers in the wind. Intrigued by the stories, Sarah found herself drawn to the tale of Emily Harper, a young woman who had disappeared decades ago under mysterious circumstances. The townsfolk spoke of how Emily had ventured into the nearby Whispering Woods one fateful night and never returned. Haunted by the tale, Sarah made up her mind to uncover the truth behind Emily's disappearance. The next morning, Sarah set out for the Whispering Woods, the air heavy with the promise of rain. The forest loomed before her, its ancient trees reaching towards the sky like skeletal fingers. The wind whispered through the branches, carrying with it an eerie melody that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. Undeterred, she plunged into the heart of the woods, the dense foliage swallowing her up like a voracious beast. The further she ventured, the more the forest seemed to come alive around her. Shadows danced in the corner of her vision, and the branches seemed to twist and contort as if reaching out to grab her. But Sarah pressed on, her determination overriding her fear. She had to know what had happened to Emily Harper, and she wouldn't rest until she had the answers. Hours passed, the daylight fading into dusk as Sarah trudged through the underbrush. The forest seemed to grow darker, the shadows deepening into impenetrable blackness. Just when Sarah began to doubt her decision, she stumbled upon a clearing bathed in an eerie glow. In the center of the clearing stood an old, dilapidated cabin, its windows shattered and its walls covered in ivy. Sarah's heart raced as she approached the cabin, a sense of foreboding settling over her like a heavy cloak. Cautiously, Sarah pushed open the creaking door of the cabin, the hinges protesting loudly in the stillness of the forest. The interior was shrouded in darkness, the air thick with the scent of decay and mildew. As her eyes adjusted to the gloom, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Scattered across the dusty floor were old photographs, their faded faces staring up at her with accusing eyes. Sarah recognized Emily Harper among them, her smiling face frozen in time. Heart pounding, Sarah picked up one of the photographs, her fingers trembling. The image showed Emily standing in front of the very cabin she now stood in, a look of pure joy on her face. But it was the figure standing in the shadows behind Emily that made Sarah's blood run cold. A tall, shadowy figure loomed behind Emily, its features twisted into a grotesque mask of malice. It seemed to be reaching out for her, its claw-like fingers inches away from her unsuspecting form. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows of the cabin, sending the photographs fluttering to the ground like autumn leaves. Sarah's heart raced as she realized she was not alone in the cabin. Whispers filled the air, their voices echoing through the dusty confines of the cabin. Sarah could feel a presence in the room with her, a malevolent force that seemed to feed on her fear. "Emily," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the cacophony of whispers. "What happened to you?" As if in response, the shadows in the corner of the room seemed to coalesce into a solid form. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she watched the figure materialize before her eyes. It was Emily Harper, her once vibrant eyes now dull and lifeless. She reached out to Sarah, her voice a mere whisper on the wind. "Help me," Emily pleaded, her voice filled with anguish. "I'm trapped here, lost in the darkness." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she reached out to Emily, her fingers passing through the ghostly figure. The cabin seemed to shake with the force of Emily's despair, the walls groaning as if in agony. "I can't leave," Emily continued, her voice growing more desperate. "He won't let me go." "Who won't let you go?" Sarah asked, her heart pounding in her chest. But before Emily could respond, the cabin was plunged into darkness. The whispers grew louder, swirling around Sarah like a malevolent storm. With a cry of fear, Sarah stumbled towards the door, her heart pounding in her chest. The cabin seemed to twist and contort around her, the walls closing in as if intent on crushing her. But Sarah refused to give up. Summoning all of her courage, she burst through the door of the cabin and into the clearing beyond. The forest seemed to come alive around her, the trees twisting and writhing as if possessed. Desperation lent her speed as she raced through the underbrush, branches clawing at her clothes and tearing at her skin. The whispers followed her, their voices taunting and mocking as she fled deeper into the woods. Finally, just as Sarah thought she could go no further, she stumbled upon a familiar path. Moonlight filtered through the trees, casting an ethereal glow over the scene before her. Gasping for breath, Sarah collapsed to her knees, the whispers fading into the distance. She had escaped the darkness of the whispering woods, but the memory of Emily's desperate plea haunted her still. Days passed, and Sarah found herself unable to shake the memory of her encounter in the cabin. She returned to Ravenswood, her mind consumed with thoughts of Emily Harper and the dark force that held her captive. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah delved into the town's history, poring over old records and speaking with anyone who remembered Emily's disappearance. Slowly, a chilling tale began to emerge. It seemed that Emily had stumbled upon the cabin in the woods one fateful night, drawn by a mysterious force that beckoned her inside. But once she had entered, she had never returned. The townsfolk spoke of a dark presence that lurked within the cabin, a malevolent force that fed on the souls of the lost. They whispered of a figure known only as the Shadow Man, a being of pure darkness that claimed those who dared to enter the cabin. Haunted by the tales, Sarah knew she had to confront the darkness once more. Armed with nothing but her determination, Sarah returned to the whispering woods, the air heavy with the promise of a storm. The forest seemed to echo with the whispers of the lost, their voices guiding her towards the cabin. Heart pounding, Sarah pushed open the door of the cabin once more, the hinges groaning in protest. The interior was shrouded in darkness, the air thick with the scent of decay. But this time, Sarah was not alone. The Shadow Man loomed before her, his form shifting and twisting like the shadows themselves. His eyes gleamed with malevolence as he reached out for her, his claw-like fingers inches away from her throat. With a cry of defiance, Sarah raised her hand, a brilliant light erupting from her palm. The cabin seemed to shake with the force of her power, the walls groaning as if in agony. The Shadow Man howled in rage, his form dissipating into the darkness. Sarah stood alone in the cabin, the whispers fading into silence around her. As the dust settled, Sarah knew that she had freed Emily Harper from her torment. The cabin stood empty before her, the darkness that had once consumed it banished by her light. With a sense of closure, Sarah left the whispering woods behind her, the memory of her encounter fading into the mists of time. But the town of Ravenswood would never forget. Whispers still echoed through its cobblestone streets, tales of Sarah's bravery passing from generation to generation. And in the heart of the whispering woods, the cabin stood as a silent testament to the darkness that had once lurked within. But now it was nothing more than an empty shell, its secrets lost to the ages. As for Sarah, she knew that she had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. The memory of Emily Harper would always linger in her heart, a reminder of the price of curiosity and the power of redemption. And so, the town of Ravenswood slept a little easier at night, knowing that the darkness of the whispering woods had been banished, at least for now. But as Sarah walked away from the forest, she couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows still watched her, their whispers echoing in the back of her mind. and she knew that the darkness would always be waiting, lurking in the shadows, ready to claim its next victim.